I got a story. I've got a story about Ricky Young, one of my good friends, lived in the same apartment unit as us. And here's a story about friendship. And, you know, friendships are good. And these stories should always be included in any time you're trying to pass on any storyline or doing any storytelling. You know, the word storytelling makes me think of something too. I ran across a word, griot, G-R-I-O, griot. And I found that is a way of telling stories that was passed down through the Africans years ago. Like an African storyteller that kept stories alive and passed them down through the years was called a griot. So I guess I'm a keeper of the griot line. I'm rambling on right now, but I did focus on that word when I spoke the word storytelling. It made me reflect on that word. I'm not a wordsmith, but every now and then, you know, some of these words, I look at these words and I hear words and become fascinated with words. I think it helps when, you know, one of the things I know for sure, and that is this: you have to speak the King's English. You have to speak the King's English. If you speak well, it can take you places. It can open up doors for you. You have to have the mental foundation also, but your wordmanship is important also, and how you speak, because it tells the world, you know, like when a person hear you speak, that tells them something about who you are as a person. So you have to take that seriously. Once again, I'm gonna reiterate, I said this earlier, and that is, I am new to this. I am new to the idea of capturing thought via camera or through any kind of a telemedia, or, you know, just video media or videography, or whatever might be the proper terminology. I'm new to this, so I am learning as I go. Hopefully, as I get into further discussion, that, you know, it'll flow, everything will flow smoothly. I mentioned also I need to recognize whether I need to make eye contact. Let's go on to Manassas High School. We lived in a neighborhood called Fraser. No, let me back it up. I almost missed out a whole chapter. Not a chapter, but some thoughts. When I was going to Booker T. Washington, I lived up on Mississippi Boulevard, and we spoke of it as Mississippi and Walker because Walker Street intersected Mississippi Boulevard. And right there on that corner, just one building over, but you could say right there on that corner, you had the four-way grill. And that was, at the time, anybody who was important always came through the four-way grill. I mean, back then, we had, in that time, the most influential people were some of the recording artists that came through. Like we had the Isaac Hayes, entertainers of the world. We had the Barkays, and those are singers. When I say the entertainers, Isaac Hayes was a product of Stax, and Stax is like the record label that was in our neighborhood up on Macklemore. And the Barkays was one of the singing groups. But I was talking about the four-way grill, and everybody who was anybody always passed through the four-way grill the Four-Way Grill was a restaurant that people would visit that had cooked food, like soul food. When I say cooked food, I mean like soul food instead of the fast foods. But, you know, you would sit down and dine there. And that was up on right there on Mississippi Boulevard, not far as walking distance, actually. I mean, if you left my front door and walked to the Four-Way Grill, it was literally a 5-minute walk. And that's how close I was to some of the personalities of Memphis at times. And it was only when I walked down into that area and the timing was right, somebody was passing through. But that was an instrumental piece in my life also, because Mom used to take us up to the Four-Way Grill to eat. And it was almost like a treat for us when we had an opportunity to sit down. We didn't visit it many times, but we did, like on about 3 occasions, sit down as a family and eat there. And they had the best sweet potato pie probably on earth. Well, to me, it was the very best sweet potato pie on earth. I don't know who the cook was at the time or there. And that leads me into the story of my mother working at a restaurant called the Harlem House. There used to be a chain of like restaurants in the city called the Harlem House. And Mom was a young lady working there. And this is a significant, I can say that I'm branded by this here. And what I mean by branded by this is I carry this as a badge of honor. My mother worked at the Harlem House restaurant, and they had bar stools, you know, that you come up to the bar. It was a restaurant serving food, and it had bar stools and booths. But Mom was working there, and I guess childcare, and we all know how expensive childcare can be. Mama was working there, and instead of us having like childcare, we would sit there and do our homework. And this is where I talk about that badge that I wear. I'm branded with this sense of favor that I have for that time and that moment in my life, because my mother was a young lady, you know, struggling, you know, doing as, you know, the best as most young mothers do. And that's another thing too. We don't give young mothers enough credit for some of the struggles that they go through. And I'll be the first to say, as I've gotten older, you know, I've been an advocate, not an open advocate as in a political sense, but if someone had a conversation about women and getting any kind of support from the state or from the federal government, I defend that because not all playing fields are equal. You have some people that are starting off, you know, at a lower tier, and they have to work themselves up until they can get to a comfortable position in life. And I say I defend young women who have kids because they need that support. They absolutely need that support, and any kind of support you can give. That almost sounds political. I want to stay away from that. But anything that they can get, it helps the kids. Here's an example. Now, watch this here. This is just one example in my train of thought here. If a woman has extra money that, you know, like, say, for example, she makes just enough to put food on the table and pay rent and have children. If, in fact, she had some support to where she had food assistance support, she would probably have a few extra dollars after paying that rent. Well, that would allow her to do some of the things in life with children. Like, a lot of folks say, hey, you can just go to the park and you can just sit there and you can enjoy moments. And that's true. And I firmly believe that. And we've actually done it. But it also helps if that young mother had just a few cents extra to be able to buy a popsicle, an ice cream cone, Lord knows a banana split. I mean, you don't want to, I'm not even speaking of getting into some of the higher end type specialties for kids. And I'm talking specifically around desserts right now. But they could do something like that. And it would make her feel like $1 million that she was able to do that for her children. And the kids will be able to tell stories and feel happier, because they see all of these things on television and, wish that they were part of it at times, and their imaginations grow. I know because I've been there. I guess that's why I stayed in cartoon land for so long. I enjoyed cartoons until I was maybe 22. I was really old. Nah, I'll say maybe 21. I think I was about 21 when I grew out of cartoons, but I had a young state of mind. But just to stay apolitical or, not sound like I'm taking any position on anything, I do say that some assistance to families really help. And I don't think we should ever turn our back on that, and we should never turn our back on the old. We should always be there for them. There should never, ever, I didn't mean to say it like that, be a time where an old person shouldn't be able to eat if they have to use their Social Security check and it meet just their basic needs and they're unable to provide food or something, We should never get to that point as a people, and as a united people, as a country. I'll just say it that way. Okay, let's see where we're going to go next. Let's look at, I can't seem to, I want to toggle over to Manassas High School. That's where I was. I almost lost my thought there. I was going over to Manassas High School, had a great time there. But let me tell you about something that happened when I was in high school that I wish I could redo. And there are certain things in life, once it's done, you can't redo it. Watch this. I'm in the 12th grade and final year in high school, time where you're getting ready to transition away from all of your friends, graduate, never see people again, in a lot of cases, because some folks, they go to college and then take jobs in different cities and stuff, and it might be years later before you see them. But I'm in high school and I've got a couple of regrets. Number one, I didn't go to the prom. Number two, I didn't take my high school headshot, for the yearbook. Why is that important? You're going to want to one day look back and see yourself when you were young. You're going to reflect on the times when you were in high school. It might be a class reunion time come around and you're going to go back. There might be a time where you may have a yearbook and your children or grandchildren or friends or somebody will go, "What? I didn't see you in the yearbook. Did you really go to that school?" That's one of the reasons why it's important. You have to be connected. And I would encourage everybody to do this here. Everybody that's in high school at this moment would take heed to this, if nothing else. Participate in activities. Participate in, not only get your education, but participate in clubs, because those little pictures, when you look back in that yearbook, you're going to have laughter. You're going to look at it and you're going to go, you know, I remember when I was in French club. You know what? I remember when I was in DECA, or Distributive Education Clubs of America. When I say DECA, you know, I remember when I was on the football team, and a girl might, I was a cheerleader. But those things are fun to reflect on, you know, because you get a lot of laughter when you're sitting around looking at a yearbook. Now, who knows? This technology is changing. Artificial intelligence is here. And yearbooks, you know, may at some point be irrelevant, because, you know, we may not reflect on the turning of a hard page. But here's why I think the continuity is. You're still going to have those pictures, and you may end up with a flip book, or you may end up streaming it across, you know, in a video format, but those pictures will still be important. And regardless of the delivery, you know, like the way, the time frame that I grew up in, my delivery system was flipping the page through a yearbook. Yours might be sliding up on your phone to change pages or something, but the channel might change, or that delivery mechanism might change, but the overall, I don't want to use the word messaging again. I just did that, said that, that's my third time. I'm sorry. But the overall messaging remains the same. I lost my train of thought again. I don't know what I'm immersed in right now that's got me like not thinking clearly. But nonetheless, back to the yearbook piece in high school. Do all of those things, because this is going to be important. Make sure you do all of those things. Those are important things. When you are sitting down with a friend, now watch this here. There are some people who live in a hometown, never leave that hometown. Now, if you're in that situation, you're going to find more laughter when you're flipping through those pages than someone who has left town and don't get a chance to reflect and reminisce with people as often. But be sure to do those things. Now, I started this off by giving the impression that I had something extremely important to talk about. And that wasn't the primary focus, but this is. And that was outside of the headshots, you know, like for the yearbook and stuff. One of the things I didn't do was go to the prom. Now, that was important. I mean, I hear the stories of everybody. I'm talking about, oh, I went to the prom, you know, I was in a limousine. Oh yeah, we had a good time dancing. I didn't get a chance to indulge in those things because I was working. It was a choice I made at the time. However, not all choices by 17-year-olds are good. Okay, here's what I mean. I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I had a boss named Tom Gurley, and he was a good boss, you know. He was, you know, real friendly. But I had to work on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And it just so happened that I couldn't get off to go to the prom. I could use that as an excuse. but I'm not, because that would almost be like blaming Tom Gurley, and I've used him as a crutch, for too long, when I had this kind of conversation. But I'm not going to use it. It was, I have to lay that square at my own feet. And here's why I have to lay that at my own square feet. Lay that at my own feet. I could have been more outgoing when it came to delivery of my words. I could have said, hey, you have me on the schedule. Can't do it that weekend. I'm going to the prom. However, the reason why I put it back into my lap is this. At that time, I started looking for money. I started wanting to grow monetarily. I wanted money. I was in a humble environment. We were living in a project called Hurt Village at this time. It's my 12th grade year. We're living in Hurt Village, and money's tight. We were in the projects. Money's real tight. I almost said, not all people come from the projects are project minded, but let me get back to money was tight. And if I had one commitment that I tried to live up to, it would be this. I promised my sister, I was like, hey, I'm gonna make sure I take care of you. We had food at the house, we weren't strictly poverty driven, but it got tight at times, and the supplemental income was good, and me working, that's a supplemental income, even if it only be, $65 a week, $85 a week, whatever it might be, and even if I could work during the week and brought home 120 or something like that, $120 that is. Even if I was able to bring home some money, supplemental money was always good in a household. So I focused on working. And I used to always tell my sister, hey, you ain't got to worry about eating as long as I'm here, and I made sure of that, and that goes all the way back to, we used to hustle pop bottles. Now, let me tell you what that means. Hustling pop bottles mean that you would go around, you would knock on doors. Well, here, let me back it up a step. Recycling of glass was high in demand at that time. I think only California now and maybe New Jersey is really into recycling, where you can take plastics, aluminum, glass, and recycle it and get paid. But here's what recycling is. You would take, or pop bottle hustling recycling is, you would go around and you would look for pop bottles. If somebody was, and pop, what I mean by pop is soda like drinks, Coca-Colas, Sprites, sodas. They used to be in bottles versus plastic containers. The medium now is plastic. It's plastics everywhere, but during that time frame, it was glass. But we used to recycle glass bottles, and we used to call it hustling pop bottles, where you go around, people used to keep the pop bottles on the back porch. Here's why. Once you finish with a pop bottle, if you were going to take it in to recycle, you had to do one of two things. You had to rinse that pop bottle out and get all of the sweet soda out of it so that it wouldn't attract any bugs or anything. Or you would just put those pop bottles on the back porch. In these days, people used to put pop bottles on the back porch. So what we used to do is we used to go up to the house. If we saw some pop bottles on the back porch or soda bottles on the back porch, we'd knock on the door, and we'd be as kind as we could. We'd ask, could you spare, like hypothetically, you see 3 pop bottles on the back porch. You go, hey, could you spare one of your pop bottles we're hustling pop bottles. And everybody knew what hustling pop bottles meant in those days. It was the jargon of the time, or, it was the language of the time, slang of the time. I guess, that covers it all. It was how we spoke. And everybody knew what you meant. And we'd go, hey, could you spare one of your pop bottles? And, they'd go, yeah, go ahead and take one of them. Or they go, nah, I got to keep my pop bottles. I'm taking them back. And people would recycle them. And I used to go around and hustle pop bottles. And when I was really young, and I mean really young, I literally used to, instead of taking the money and buying for myself, I used to buy canned goods. I used to buy canned goods and bring it home. And I felt as proud. I mean, I was a little provider. And I felt proud about that. Like, say, for example, you got a nickel for a big pop bottle and 3 cents for a small one. You just save up enough money, or you just earn enough money for the day to buy something. And a lot of time when we were kids, we used to buy like saltine crackers. They came in like little bitty small packs, little tiny packs, little small. You didn't have to buy a box of Nabisco or, a box of saltine crackers. You could buy little bitty small packs. And back then, they had the little meat cutters where they sliced the meat. It's almost like what you find at a deli now. If you go to like any of the major food chains, they have a deli there, and they have a worker that slices your meat for you, where you get your meat fresh. Your bologna, your lunch meats, your hams, all of that. But we used to get our meats sliced and just have it with saltine crackers. And believe it or not, you could actually get just 2 slices of meat. You just tell them how much you want, and you knew how much meat cost, and they used to weigh it. But over time, you knew how much you knew if you had to have 15 cents or whatever the number was back then. You knew how much. But let me go back to the pop bottles. I just couldn't leave that off because that was important, because we used to sit around and just talk and do that after we got some meat and crackers, lunch meat and crackers. But with the pop bottles, I would bring home canned goods on some of the days. I mean, when I say the meats and crackers, I splurged on myself at times too, but for the most part, I did have those times where I would think unselfishly. I think about myself and be delighted in bringing home something to the family. Well, I've got it. That moment when I was thinking about, I was leading up to the pride piece. The pride piece is a whole story about the pop bottles. Now, when I sold those and got some money, I would buy some canned goods, buy a can of string beans, can of corn, just little bitty things like that. And I'd come home, and God, I tell you, as a boy, I literally felt like a man. I used to feel like I was doing something. I was contributing. I was making my contribution to the family, And I used to tell Yolanda, I was like, I'm going to make sure, you ain't going to go hungry as long as you got me. I used to, the radiance that I have right now is all because of that, It's all because of the feeling. I just had a feeling inside where I used to say that to her, because that was my way of telling her that I loved and cared for her and was going to look after her, because we had each other if anything else should happen. I guess that was the primary purpose of telling this story about the pop bottles. I did want to get that out.